Welcome to Communication, Connection, Community, the Podcasters Podcast. This podcast takes a deep dive into modern-day communication strategies in the podcasting space. We chat with interesting people who make the podcasting and speaking spaces exciting and vibrant. We also dive into the podcasting community with news, updates, latest trends and topics from this ever-evolving space. So strap in. It's going to be one amazing ride. Let's dive into today's episode. All right, picture it. You're a podcaster. You're cranking out episodes every single week, and you put it out there once. And that's it. But you're sitting on a boatload of content that you can be repurposing, but how do you do that? How often? What are some of the methodologies to doing that? Our guest today is going to talk about that. Please help me welcome Ely Delaney. He's the creator of the Follow-up Rockstar system, helping entrepreneurs build a 24/7 automated system and go from surviving to thriving in any economy. He's an Amazon bestseller with his books, Marketing Tidbits and Networking Tidbits, and his program, Networking Like a Rockstar, has over 1,403 students globally. He is also a podcaster. Of course he is. And we're so glad he's here today. Ely, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, my friend. It is a pleasure to come and hang out and have a good conversation because we always have those kind of conversations.
Usually they're off mic.
They are. We really should be recording them all.
We should. And they're like, hey, Ely, what about using this for content or something, or another podcast episode or something like that? Because we do have some amazing conversations. We met through a networking organization called SEN, and I'm certainly glad we did that. I think we're cut from a similar cloth when it comes to business, when it comes to podcasting. Let me ask you though, as we get started, how did you make your way, or how did you find yourself in the podcasting space?
My first podcast was one that the episodes are still up there from forever ago, Driving Your Marketing. And at that time, podcasting was still really new. There wasn't a lot of them out there. And I really had a good time with it. I had some amazing interviews with people, and I used it as a way to interview people who had, good stuff to share. I did it for a couple of years, and then I just kind of got burned out with a lot of things in life. And I was like, I'm just going to take a break and I'll come back to it. And I took a very long break and I never did come back to it. And then my more recent podcast was something that's been in the works since, 2019, early 2020, I was going to launch it. And I just wasn't really ready mentally for it. Fast forward to this last year on my 50th birthday, I decided, we're going to launch this thing. And so we launched the Meet Cool People podcast, where I just interview great people that I've met, like the people that I say, hey, you're cool. I want to have a better conversation with you and share you with the rest of the world. And so that's what Meet Cool People is about. And I have a lot of fun with it.
And over that time that you've been podcasting, and including the break in between, I'm sure you've seen a lot of evolution, changes in the podcasting space that certainly didn't deter you from not coming back into the space. That's for sure.
Well, it's evolved so much. I mean, back then when I first started, I was originally starting with, I wanted to start with doing video because I wanted to be able to have a video version, but the internet wasn't good enough yet, really. It wasn't solid enough. And I was using Skype, and Zoom didn't exist at that point. And all the cool stuff we have now, like I use Wave for my podcast, and we have like Restream and all these different things that are out there. None of those were even an inkling in anybody's eye because the internet wasn't strong enough to put that kind of video out yet. And so ultimately I used, I think I still might have used Skype. I might have used a call-in instant teleseminar or something like that to basically get going and do audio only. And now with this one, it was like, okay, wait a minute. We have video, and so many podcasts are in that aspect. And a lot of the content that comes from that is actually not just the podcast itself, but how we, like, one of the things I love talking about is the repurposing. How can we take that half an hour or 45-minute presentation of two people having a great conversation and pull 30, 40, 60 nuggets out of it in different medium and share that out? It's such a different game than it used to be.
Absolutely. I like how you did a throwback to Skype and instant teleseminar. Oh my goodness. Skype was the bane of my existence whenever I had to get on a call because I could never get it to work right. It could have been my internet connection. Who knows? It just never did work right. And then instant teleseminar, I remember I had a coach who used it a lot for his trainings and his calls. That was state of the art pretty much back then. That was, you have to use this for.
It was ahead of its time at the time. There was nothing else like it at that point.
Yeah. Imagine a world without Zoom. And now there are so many people who are saying, Zoom, you're still using Zoom? What are you using Zoom for? You don't need Zoom.
Yeah.
But it's the platform that a lot of people are comfortable with. So glad that you've stuck around and made your way back to this space, because you have a lot of great insights and ideas for what to do with your content. And I want to talk about this because I find that podcasters, when they get into this space, they think, firstly, I'm going to put out a podcast. It's going to be uber successful, and I'm just going to put my episodes out there once, maybe a reel or two, and that's all I'm going to need to do, and I'll be the next Joe Rogan. It usually doesn't work that way.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But it does work when you take that content and you realize that, oh my goodness, I've got some juicy nuggets here. Why am I not recycling, or why am I not repurposing it? And I know you've got some great insights as to how to do that.
So the biggest thing is repurposing. And it's so funny because back when I started my coaching business, I was coaching and I had a bunch of courses. And one of the courses that I had was called the Unlimited Content Creation. And it was from forever ago, probably 13, 14 years ago. I'm finding a time now with all the different medium and stuff we have. I'm like, wait a minute, that kind of thing is actually important now, because especially when you're looking at podcasts, as a great example, it's like my favorite example out of, if you need to create content, whether you're doing your own show or you're a guest on other people's show, that is a massive side of content that you can use. But it's not just, hey, here's a show, go listen to it, because that's what most people do. It's like they're gonna post when the show goes live. Like for my show, it goes live every Wednesday, and I always go, hey, I had a great time with interviewing XYZ person. This is what we did. This is what we talked about. Go check it out here. Everybody does that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hope that the guest, if you're using guests, does the same thing on their side. And then you just stop and you move on to the next thing. And so many people are like, that's their entire, marketing strategy is, let me post the episode and then I'll post the next episode next week. And it doesn't work that way, because in today's world, we have to put so much out there in so many different medium that we've got to get out there a lot more and in different ways. And that's where the repurposing comes into play. So do you want me to go through kind of my little exercise? I have what I call the content wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. Share with us what you do, because I think there's a lot of value to that. Because, and the other thing too, as part of this evolution in the space, is when you got in way back when, most podcasts were audio only, because as you said earlier, it was video was still clunky. You really wanted good video, it was thousands of dollars to invest to have that. And even then, it still probably didn't put up even near the quality that we have today. But then also, we didn't need to repurpose content, because people were able to find the types of posts you just explained. If you just said, check out my podcast interview with Ely Delaney, we talk about the people were able to find that. There weren't the algorithms that there are in place now, and people had more time to consume content as opposed to where we're at today. So give us the lowdown of how you go about it.
So, and I want you to think about this, because back then, there also wasn't near as much content. Like, I mean, when I started my podcast, there's probably 15, 20,000 podcasts at that point when I started the first one. I mean,
I chuckle because I can't imagine a world with only 15, 20,000 podcasts. We're talking back in the days of maybe even slightly after, but Sam Crowley, who started his podcast when podcasts were in diapers. Imagine, being one of those first 100 or 200 people, or even 2,000 people saying, I got a podcast. People saying, what the heck is a podcast? You weren't much after that, really.
No, I told you I was an early adopter with it, because I saw the medium as the possibility, and I loved the idea of having cool conversations. I'm all about that. Like, I mean, if people were watching the video version of this, they would see above my head, it says Meet Cool People, which is also the name of my current podcast. It's because I love meeting people and having great conversations. So for me, that was like, this is kind of a cool tool. And back then, I mean, there's a lot of people don't realize that the whole naming of podcasts is because we had these things called iPods, which was the first popular, it wasn't the first, but it was the first popular mainstream MP3 player, which was this little square device or a little rectangle device that was about the size of today's phones that would, hold 60 gigs of nothing but music or podcasts. And so that's where the name came from, was podcast. Nowadays, a lot of people don't even know what an iPod is. It just shows how old you and I are getting. But
it's a museum piece is what it is.
It's a museum piece. I still have a couple of them, actually, because I had a little one, and then I had the classic, which was the big brick that you could like knock somebody out with. So I want you to stop and think about like any piece of content you have. So maybe you've got your video, you've got a podcast interview, and maybe it's 20 minutes long. If you can break that into small nuggets and you're looking for 1-minute chunks, the 1-minute chunks end up being, everybody's familiar with Reels right now. So Instagram, Facebook Reels. If you're on YouTube, that's YouTube Shorts. And the idea is that they're short nuggets, 60 seconds or less. If you can pull, say, 10 60-second nuggets out of your 20 to 30-minute podcast, first thing you have is you have your Reels. So these are your video, short form content. So that's just one way to repurpose it. The other things you can do with that, though, this is where a lot of people go short, because we have 3 different types of medium that people don't think about. Number one is we have the video. Okay. So we're in a world with a video podcast. So we start with that. So we take the big video. That's what goes on the podcast. That's what goes on our website. And we're sharing it out with everybody. That's the whole episode. Then we create 10, let's say we only take 10 reels. So 10 60-second or less clips out of that. But then we turn around, and out of those 60-second clips, we pull the audio back out of that, and we create what we call an audiogram, which is basically a meme. All it is a pretty graphic that looks like it maybe has the picture of the host or the host and the guest or just the guest or whatever, and says, check out this thing. And then you put the audio to it and you export it as another video, but it looks like a graphic, like a pretty graphic.
Yep.
Okay. So now you've got 10 more pieces of content using the same exact piece. Now, out of those 10 clips that you took out, by the way, let me go back up just a little bit. You have video. Now you have audio. Okay. We're back to the audio piece. But now out of those, if we can pull 1 or 2 sentences out of that 1-minute clip and create a quote from the author, from the speaker or the guest or whoever said that one little nugget. And you take that and you should take those exact same graphics that you just created the audiogram with, and you put the quote over the top of it, and you save those as images. And now you're sharing image versions, which is our third type. So you have video, you have audio, you have images. You've just taken one piece of content, and right now you've turned that one piece into 31 total. Now, if you take that same process, maybe you can take those 10 clips and gather them together into a piece. Maybe you could say 10 top nuggets about XYZ topic, 10 top nuggets about how to have a successful podcast, or 10 top nuggets on how to repurpose your content. And you take all those 1-minute clips and you create a series. You've probably seen them and you may not even realize what they are. They're called a carousel. So you can create a series of images that go together. Usually you have a title slide and you have, 1 through 9. You can't do 10 because you can only have 10 of them total. So you want to cover and your 9 tips, and you post that on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And now you have a series, which is a carousel. We're taking this one 20-minute interview, and now we've turned around, and that's just one more piece. So we're at 32 pieces of content from one 20-minute interview. And what if we take that 20-minute interview, and instead of taking 1-minute clips, what if we could find nuggets that are a bit longer, 3 to 5 minutes, and break that out? Now, those are too long for a lot of video clips. You can't use that as a reel or like a YouTube short. But you want to make it as a regular nugget that you can share on just Facebook, Instagram, and even LinkedIn as a 3, 5, maybe 10-minute. You want to keep it still fairly short. 3 to 5 minutes is great. But these are just snippets out of the interview, and you share that as a separate piece of content. And out of, say, your 20-minute interview, let's say you get 2 or 3 of those. So let's say if we got 3 of those, we're now at 35 different pieces of content, all from one interview that you started with. This is the content wheel.
Which is great. How easy is that, though? Because I'm sure that there's somebody listening today that says, or that is saying, Eli, that sounds great. That sounds like a very daunting process to walk through. So is there
Okay.
because when you think of like, oh, I just come up with 35 pieces of content every single week from one episode,
Yeah.
how do you simplify that though? Yeah. Okay. You take that 60-second clip, but is there software that helps you do this? Is there, are
Yes.
you just leveraging your VA? How are you going about this?
There's several different ways to do it. One of the things is we live in this wonderful world where AI has helped us in a lot of areas. And I am a big advocate for, I did watch Terminator, so I am very cautious of what I do with AI. However,
I watched iRobot, same reason.
exactly. Yeah. At least iRobot had a nice robot in there too. The biggest thing you want to think about though is that there are tools out there, a couple of them that I use specifically, and I've actually gone through some really deep training for this course that I've actually been putting together for it, which is Minvo. And Minvo, you've probably heard there's things like Opus Clip and Munch and I think it's called Submagic. There's several different softwares that you can go through and upload your 20, 30-minute video, and it's going to pull a bunch of the nuggets out for you. So that's great because then that gives you your shorts, okay, your 1-minute videos. Then, like Minvo specifically, also has a thing where that you can actually select a different way of doing it and say, no, I want 5-minute nuggets out of this. And so that can help with that. Then you take things like you pull those videos out and you pull the quotes. And I have another tool that I use called Cast Magic. And with Cast Magic, it is an AI tool that will transcribe and that will help you. And you have to prompt it properly. You have to, just like all AI, you have to tell it what to do and give it some examples and all that kind of stuff. But I can have it start transcribing the stuff and pulling nuggets out of an interview and find me good quotes to play with. And so now that gives me the nuggets of the text. And then with the text, you can use tools like Canva and come up with a couple of really cool designs that are more generic to your podcast, where you just switch out the colors, switch out maybe you want to put your guest picture on there, whatever. And then you can actually upload a spreadsheet and it will batch the whole thing and create a whole bunch of graphics for you. And so your 20-minute interview, to create all these different pieces of context, once you have the system built, it might take you 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. I mean, at first it's going to take a bit longer because you're learning the system. But once you get it down, in under 2 hours, you can create these 35 different pieces of content. And that's not a bad deal. You can take one interview in under 2 hours. And if you get good with me, there's a whole bunch of it that I'm doing. I'm getting it done in under. I'm saying that I know this system. I built the process that I'm sharing right now. So I know how to get it to go really, really fast. I can do it in under an hour. I can do the video editing. I can get all the graphics. I can upload them to Canva and actually have the output ready to go in about an hour. It takes time and practice to that. So I say for most people, probably 2 hours. But in 2 hours, you've got a month's worth of content if you're posting every day.
Right.
Not a bad.
And by the way, if you're working with a production agency, like folks that come to me, for example, then you don't need to spend that time doing it. The producer actually will do it for you. And then you just have the content available and you just make sure that you put it out there at the appropriate time and on a marketing schedule or what have you. So it, again, it doesn't have to seem as daunting as we might be thinking it is, because I think that's the block. It's not the I know I need to promote my podcast. It's the, oh my goodness, how am I going to promote it enough? I can't promote it enough, especially in this very loud, crowded world of content. How do we put ourselves forward? And I think that maybe sometimes is the stumbling block.
Well, it is, because a lot of times, and I find like this is the whole reason that this new version of the ultimate or the unlimited content creation course that I've been building out. I built it out because of stuff I was using myself. And I keep running into people they're like, hey, I know I need to do more on social media. I know I need to promote this. Maybe they have a podcast. Like, I want to do more stuff with it. But now it's getting to the point where it's like, I'm just posting, hey, listen to the episode. Hey, listen to the episode. Hey, listen to the episode. And it's like, I don't know what to do from here. I'm like, okay, let's fix that. And so I've been using this for my own podcast. And then I started using it with some clients that I was helping them that were getting into the guesting space and I'm coaching them through how to become a better guest and stuff like that. And these are my clients that I'm helping with my follow-up process. But then they're like, okay, now I need to get in front of more eyeballs. Well, let's make that happen. And so it's just kind of come out of necessity. But the great thing about it is so many people are stuck. Where do I start? And that's the part we want to get over first, because if you got, somebody's working with you and you're the production company, great. Utilize that, do all that stuff. But a lot of times people don't know what they don't know. They don't even realize that these things are even a possibility. And that's where I wanted to really share this out with people, because there are so many opportunities. And I didn't even say everything. I just gave you a quick rundown of a couple of different options. I have a whole graphic that I use that I'll fill out with people and show them. One time we went through an example through a webinar as opposed to a podcast. We came up with, I think, 98 different types of content.
Wow.
And I mean, it was just insane what's possible with it. But you can have a VA do this stuff if you're not working, for those of you that are listening, if you're not working with Carl, you can have a VA do some of this stuff. They can learn how to do some of this stuff. Obviously, the best quality is going to be having a true production person do it for you. But if you're just starting out and you're not quite there yet, these other tools help you get that content. And you don't even have to do everything. Do what you can, do what you have time for. But if you could turn around and come up with a month's worth of content in a couple of hours, is that worth it? I would think so. I know it is for me, because it gives me so much content. I got 6 months worth of content sitting on my hard drive just waiting for me to post it. I just haven't had time to stop and schedule a bunch of it out yet. And I have a bunch of stuff scheduled. I just need to do more.
So for somebody who is, say, at the starting gate, maybe not at the starting gate of their podcast, but at the starting gate of repurposing their content, and they're listening to what you've just shared, where would be a logical place for them to start? Would you say that maybe getting good at Instagram Reels? Would you say YouTube Shorts? Yeah. Is there a good place that it's kind of like eating an elephant? You don't want to eat the whole thing in one bite, because you'd probably die. So, but what can they do to get started, to ease into it?
So my recommendation is start with Reels. You're looking for less than 60-second clips that you can pull out of it, and as many as you can get that are good. Okay, and that's really, if you got however long your podcast is, just get as many of them as you can. Create those, caption them. Everybody's seen the cool, we call them the Hormozy style videos, where it's got the follow the bouncing bubble captions over the top. Have some fun with it. There, like I rattled off a bunch of different possibilities on software. I have my preferences, but it doesn't really matter which platform. That helps start the process. If you're under 60 seconds, here's the fun thing about it. Get set up. You can post it on Instagram Reels. You can post it on Facebook Reels. You can actually post the same video on LinkedIn. It's not as a reel. It's just as a video that happens to be vertical instead of horizontal. And you can post it on TikTok. And by the way, if you're one of these people like me who says, I am never going to touch TikTok, I have no desire to watch people dance on TikTok, I am not going to do that. That's okay. Get an account and upload the same video up there, and don't do anything else on the platform. Just get it up there. Same thing with YouTube. You got YouTube Shorts. It's the same process. That's why I say less than 60 seconds, because the other platforms allow you to go longer, and sometimes they even encourage it. But if you take the exact same reel and stick it on all of them, YouTube, as of this recording, says 60 seconds is our max. So let's start with that. We have to hit that as our biggest limitation. And we'll just take the same video and stick them on all the platforms and create a whole bunch of them and post one out every couple of days. And there you go.
Because the biggest thing, it's not about, I have a podcast. That's one piece of it. That's one piece to elevating your credibility, being seen as a go-to authority. But it's about, people need to see you. People need to, and I know I need to improve on this. So thank you for sharing. I'm going to take this page myself and do it. You're one of probably, 8 or 10 guests I've had in the last 3 months that have said, what do you mean you don't have a video podcast? You should have a video podcast. And I've even had one guest threaten, which it's not a threat, he's probably going to do it, say, give me the video. I'm going to create all the shorts and reels and things. Yeah. So there's some value in it, because people don't know you if they don't see you, and if they don't.
Right.
And if you're not in their face enough.
Yeah. Well, and here's another thing too, is like, say for instance, like you and I, like this podcast right here, you are interviewing me. Okay. So two things are going to happen with this. Number one, you're going to put it out there and you've got the audio. And the cool thing is we are recording this via Zoom, which means you have the video. Even if you're not doing a quote unquote video podcast, you still have the video. You can still use that content and create these clips. And the cool thing about it is you create the clips, you post them out in social media, you make sure you tag me. Now it's showing up to my audience and your audience because I'm tagged in it. So now more people are seeing your show because of me. There's so much power in that. Like even for me, I've literally done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows as a guest. For a long time, everybody was like, why don't you start your own show again? I'm like, I'm having too much fun being a guest on everybody else's show. It's a hell of a lot less work.
Yeah.
And so I was doing this on other people's shows. But then when that show goes live, I'm like, okay, how can I repurpose this? And how do I schedule it out? So I'll share this again 3 or 6 months down the road. The host now loves me for it. It gets me more content. And the more people can see me out there sharing my expertise, the better. And so as a host, if you're posting this stuff out there, make sure you're tagging your guests and then post different clips over the next. I mean, if you get 20 clips out of it, post like 2 or 3 a month. If you're doing, let's say, a weekly show, all you're doing is you're posting 2 or 3 of those clips per month over the next many months, however many clips you actually end up with. And maybe just 2 a month times, if you got 10 of them, well, that's 5 months that you're sharing that out. And every time you share it out, you're tagging the person who's the guest on your show. It's going to get in front of their people as well. And you're bringing more people back to you.
Phenomenal insights, Ely. This has been an amazing conversation. We could talk about this, and we have off mic times. We have spouses that have said, knock on the door, are you coming out of your call with Carl soon? Or what? But no,
I don't have that issue, but I know you do. So
it's been a phenomenal conversation, though. Seriously, a couple of things before I let you go. Number one is how can people best connect with you, or what's the resource that you want to pass along to folks today?
Best resource, go to connectwithely.com. Ely is ELY, not ELI, ELY. If you go to connect with Ely with an I, you're going to end up with some commercial real estate dude out of Iowa or something like that. So that's not me. Connectwithely.com. And I got some freebie stuff up there. I got all my social media links. If you want to connect with me in social media. And by the way, if you want to connect with me on social media, please be sure to send a message saying you've heard me on this podcast, because that means the world to me. Those are the people who send a message that go along with it saying you heard me on a show. They go to the top of the list. I think I got probably like 20 people on Facebook waiting to connect with me right now. And those are all just randos. If somebody sends me a message, I'm going to pay more attention to it. And then also, I mean, if this was a good conversation, you want to have a good chat, I love to have conversations with cool people. So there's a link to my calendar on there. Grab a spot, seriously, just grab a spot, have a good conversation, because I'm totally game for that. It's not a pitch. It's not a strategy session or discovery call or any of that kind of BS. It's just a call. And if there is something I can help you with, what do we do? Awesome. We'll continue that part of the conversation. If not, that's not the goal of the conversation anyway.
And I can honestly say that Ely is a great guy to chat with. That's one of the reasons why we're chatting today, and we're actually recording our call, because he is such a great guy and is so giving and so generous, but also very insightful. So Ely, thank you so much again for being my guest. Before I turn you loose, though, I'll give you the final thought.
First off, thank you for letting me come and share and have a good conversation. But the final thought, get out there, just repurpose your stuff. Start using what you already have. You got some amazing content out there. Everybody's all worried about, you got to have more content. You have the content. You just need to figure out how to reuse it in different ways and get it out there. Because the reality is that people think differently. People see things at different times. And the more you put it out there, the more people see how much amazing stuff you have to offer to the world. And then they're going to pay more attention, which that's the goal behind all of it.
Ely Delaney, great place to leave it. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And thanks for being my guest today.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate you.
And thank you for joining us today. Special thanks to our producer and production lead, Dom Carrillo, our music guru, Nathan Simon, and the person who works the arms, all of our arms actually, my trusty assistant, Stephanie Gafour. If you like what you heard today, leave us a comment and a review, and be sure to share it with your friends. If you don't like what you heard, please share it with your enemies. Oh, and if you have a suggestion of someone who you think would make an amazing guest on the show, let us know about it. Drop us an email, askcarl@carlspeaks.ca. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. You'll find all those links in the show notes. And if you're ready to take the plunge and join the over 3 million people who have said yes to podcasting, let's have a conversation. We'll show you the simplest way to get into the podcasting space because, after all, we're podcast solutions made simple. We'll catch you next time.